Happy morning to everybody. A great afternoon and a great evening. When we see into eye, there is a even in communication. I've learned this from Patri sir. That when we speak to somebody, when we see eye to eye, there is an energy that goes. So many times you look at this way, like this, but then we are actually not effectively communicating. So it's great. I can see. And then you can see, of course, you can see me even if you're video on, but I think it's always good. You can see when Karthikeyan is speaking. It's good for interaction. And I love this because in the absence of physical halls. So it's great for all of us to be getting together, dear friends. We will complete today, after meditation, our second detailed class around memory powers as a way to boost our performance. So we have a physical quotient, physical aspect of it, we learned. And then today we'll understand around memory powers, what we have, and then how the learning is happening. And certainly it will be, for some of you who have obviously heard before, it'll be a good recall, right? But then before we go in, if I say meditation is increasing not one, not two, but 7 memory powers for each of us, this meditation, this simple technique, and making us very, very successful, then I'm sure you'll agree with me that we will go deep dive again today. We have a chance once more time to go into ourselves, to become the best of ourselves with that commitment that we will only be observing the breath and nothing else during the whole duration. So relax yourself, dear friends. Sit comfortably. Great meditation. Every meditation is good meditation. There is no judgment on the meditation, no matter how we felt. Because we are in the body so less. Because we don't know all the time what happened. Rather, we don't know ever what happened. So friends, as you are soaking into the energies, meditation is constantly creating several new neural networks in our brain. One of the best and most powerful tool to develop our intelligence quotient, IQ, become the smartest person or become the genius minded, unlimited memory power through meditation. Those who feel I don't have adequate IQ because I didn't have good education background, are those who feel my age is catching up, so I'm losing memory. Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, any of those where we are worried, we are seeing some of that, they can all be definitely tackled and reverse, and if we adopt a meditation regularly. So meditation is, the memory power is very important for us, we all know. To be successful, you got to have that memory power. You are in that business call, you are with that customer, but then you need to tell him about a case study or tell her about a case study that you have won last time. Memory is not coming, so you're not able to recollect that incident. They're talking about, in customer situations, it's all about dealing with unexpected, right? You don't know what is thrown at you. You don't know what is thrown at you by the clients. But then you need to be able to ready with the data anytime that is there. You need to be able to put it back to them in one way or the other and give them the right, meaningful, convincing answer. So you need to have a great memory to be able to recollect from past events, past incidents. You go into the office and your largest client has a challenge. So you're called to go and work on it. Suddenly you're worried. Now everybody's focus is on you in the organization. Everybody's focus. You know, right? I'm sure you relate with me. You are the center attraction at that point for the next 2 days until the time the problem is resolved, because the client is, these are billions of dollars that clients are potentially getting impacted with if we don't. So we are worried, we are tensed. In the tension, we can't even deal with these unplanned, unexpected situations because we can't recollect, when we don't even know what exactly, where to start in solving the problem. Our ability, we go into the stressful modes and our ability to deal with unexpected, unplanned situations becomes tougher. Because if the memory does not serve us right, if we're not able to recollect, we're not able to analyze with an aptitude more quickly where to go, more creatively how to solve, there's going to be a challenge. And of course, we'll be fearful, but not with meditation. When we start meditating regularly, we are developing not one, not two, all of those memory powers, because of which we start feeling very, very confident. You know, when you have the memory power, when you can recollect things pretty readily, and when you, let's stop annotation. When you can recollect things very readily, when you can synthesize, when you get creative ideas to do things differently, then you get confident that anything that is thrown at you, you're able to solve. Very important in our business lives to grow, right? Because there are so many challenges come. It's important to apply what is past, but it's also important to constantly think new. So friends, with meditation, there is these two powers, storing power and access power. What we normally call memory, that is these two. You're effectively storing in your brain, in those neural networks, and then accessing on time, efficiently. Right time, right place, being able to retrieve it. Together is memory power. Just the way when you have your wardrobes and if they have been tucked well, we have a lot of items, you want to store them very nicely. You store them in a way that when you want that t-shirt, that cloth, this thing, then you can readily pull it out. So we need to be able to access very quickly. That means it has to be indexed, it has to be stored in a most efficient fashion. And the brain, as it develops several of these neural gateways, it is able to, now this memory power, there is long-term memory, short-term memory, both. And as the neural activity increases in those regions of long-term memory and short-term memory, one is in hippocampus in the subconscious brain, another is in the frontal cortex brain. Both of these areas where they get extra neural networks. And as a result, you're able to increase these two powers very significantly. Concentration is the thing in learning. Right now, you're actually listening to me in a low beta. Low beta and alpha are very good states to be able to concentrate well and then very, very deeply listening. All we've been told is to focus. We've never been told how to focus by our teachers or by our parents in most cases. But that focus is to lower ourselves, to lower our brain waves patterns where you reduce that heightened activity. So bring down thoughts that you ultimately have that focus on one given thing. That's that mindfulness, that's that awareness, right? Mindfulness. We become highly mindful. We concentrate on the one thing. That is so important, in business terms. They're all basics, but so important. If you have to solve a challenge pretty quickly, if you are in a client situation where you have to be very, very so attentive, you are a business leader, you are doing in a meeting, if you're not concentrative, if you come with your own agenda and just want to tell your agenda and not really bother about what others say, then sure, I mean, the people will come to you, but then they are all talking something else behind. They're not motivated. So having that singular focus and being attentive to people in the room is so important. And that's developed through meditation. Reading power. The whole learning ability increases when the reading power increases. Many people say, I don't feel like reading. Yes, I've somehow gotten through my education, but now I don't feel like reading. But if we don't read, then we don't enhance. And if we don't enhance ourselves, then we don't expand ourselves, then we don't have new experiences in our life. Life gets boring. We got to have new experiences, means we got to keep on learning something. And reading is a great way of learning. I mean, I've used reading. You can listen, they're all coming, but reading is a great way. The reading power is tremendously increased when we meditate because it's coming from the mind faculties. Learning power is that aptitude, what we call, the ability to synthesize information, ability to synthesize knowledge from something you read as well as something you experience. You read neural science today, you read medical science tomorrow, you read a point from epigenetics, you read something from psychology when you met that psychologist, and you put all of that together and say, oh, how does it mean? What does it mean to say, if I change my thought, my gene gets expressed differently? How is it possible? If I change my thought, change my feeling, my body is producing new protein and then repairing as well as creating several new cells and then developing the organs back again. How is that possible? You got to put a lot of pieces together, right? That's learning power. Constantly businesses are changing, and so the technology is changing. We got to learn the new ways of doing things, right? The banking sector is totally different the way it is functioning. So those 10 years ago, if you had one skill, now you have to have a totally different skill. IT, you don't even tell. Telcos is totally different. So how do they operate? So we are asked constantly to learn something new, and that learning new becomes very joyful, is not become dreadful when you meditate, because you are naturally increasing the gateways. Your ability to understand is right. People say, I don't know maths, I don't want to. No, that's not for me. That's because our ability to synthesize is going down. But with meditation, the logic increases, the ability, the whole brain synchronization increases, left side, right side. Because of that, then what you learn from the left brain, what if you learn from, you put them together, then you have a holistic way of looking at things. So learning power increases when you're able to synthesize multiple pieces of information, and that's what we do. In meditation, it helps us to do that. Creative power, creativity. Doing things differently, we have a whole class on this later in probably week 4 or week 5. But we start doing things differently. We start applying new principles in meditation when you regularly meditate, because there are certain areas of the brain that get developed that you start thinking differently. You are, for example, when you do the report, every day you can do a report. You go into the office and then you want to do a report, you will do the report. Same standard report. You will just plus 3-4 buttons and then say, I don't know, without even being aware of what you're doing, you just type in and it'll come, because it's all, you've been doing it for years, right? But then when you become meditative and then you look at it and say, hey, how do I improve my report? Can I add this extra field? Can I give this extra piece of data so that it's useful for my boss? Now it comes because of two things. One, you have to lose your fear that if I change something, will they take it? Will I fail? Fear of failure. So that is another part. And then we develop creativity and say, okay, yes, I can add this extra data. So that'll give more meaningful information to my team. You're always looking to add value rather than just doing things routinely. The marketing people in companies, typically a lot of times, we're just copy pasting. We're just taking whatever that was there 1 year ago, and then we just put some more changes here and there and then send it. No. Something I've literally learned, that every time we're doing some new work, that means there is something new to update. We take and then we constantly refine that language, rather than just simply taking and then pasting it. One is getting used to the comfort, whereas in meditation, you always want to do things differently, because that's when you break the monotonous and you enjoy. Every time you do things differently and new things, you enjoy. So even if you've written something 5 days ago, you want to refine it. And thought power is the last one. Thought power is so important to create things. Our ability to connect into that emptiness. And how does thought power come? When you empty all those thoughts, so then you are staying on to the original thoughts. Your clarity improves, so you're staying on to this thought, and then you're giving that energy and more energy. Because in meditation, we are improving our energy levels. So your thought is exciting, your thought is visionary, your thought is forward looking, so then naturally you're putting all energy behind it, so you increase your thought power. It's not another thought you got because your friend has it, your neighbor has it. That's not the thought you're leading into. Instead, you have so much clarity that you're totally excited every time you think of something. So you have a higher thought power, so things happen. If you wanted to, after you become meditators, you regularly practice and you start seeing it. What you think is what you automatically start seeing in your life happening. I bet many people here who have been practicing for the last 2 months alone can say that things start happening in my life. I think about it and it happens. I think about a person, they call me. I wanted this project, I wanted this job, and then my manager offered this to me. It's happening. It'll happen to you too. It happens to every one of us, friends. So meditation is improving all the powers. So it's improving the storing and access power improves because the hippocampus area in that limbic brain, we'll get to the next slide and we'll see that. In the limbic brain, hippocampus area is a long-term memory. So because the neural networks increase there, Dr. Sarah Laser, this is one of the landmark studies that she has done in 2005. Very quite effectively quoted everywhere. And this study demonstrates that our brain areas thicken. The gray matter thickens in various parts of the brain. The gray matter thickening is new neural connections formed. As regular meditators, more and more new neural connections are formed. And as a result, this hippocampus area also has more connections, so you have more long. So storing and access becomes very powerful. That increased cerebral cortex, which is the frontal portion, I'll come to that again. The frontal part of the brain, where you have more and more neural networks, because of which your concentration, reading, learning, because these are all higher functions, cognitive functions they're called. So that part increases quite a bit. Our thought power absolutely is increasing because of the neural pathways again, as well as by reducing the number of thought, unwanted thought in the mind. So putting all our energy into specific set of thoughts. So with meditation, we are gaining is about health, energy, and performance, right? So before we go in and then talk about a specific topic on learning, we gained a lot of extra time. We talked about this 2 days ago. Your sleep reduces, your digestion improves, your you become more efficient because you no longer are using your energy into various things, and as a result become more efficient. Many people have said in our past self-assessment surveys that they started seeing efficiency just in about 2 weeks later. Some said anywhere between 10% to 50% improvement in the efficiency or the productivity of the work. We are remembering much better, so become a lot more impressive, a lot more confident in situations. And we're able to provide better response to situations because of the reduced cortisol and stress. And then because there's so many new neural connections that are being formed, we can handle unknown issues, your customer issues, your new designs. Also become very more fulfilled because you're handling those unplanned, unknown situations. When you are handling unplanned, unknown situations easily, before meditation, you would dread to take something. You try to avoid a problem is given to you, but now after meditation, you want to go and then take that issue because you derive pleasure out of it because you're going into the unknown territories, and that gives you new experiences. That's what meditators are constantly doing: break the routine and go new. So, friends, meditative employees become great asset to the organizations, for sure. We will see soon, or rather, many recruiters will start seeing that. Okay, are you a meditator? Oh, okay, so there is meditation. Doesn't matter what meditation, there is meditation. Okay, so I think then we are probably dealing with a better person. You know, meditation doesn't mean that meditator is like the best person tomorrow in front of you. Everybody has the weaknesses, but however, they're willing to learn and they're slowly getting better and better and better at what they are. So this is going to happen. And that's why companies are investing, as we know, and then we're all investing ourselves. Now I want to talk about an important concept called learning, doing, and being. Before I do that, I'd like you to just recollect what you learned and then write that message to your buddy, to your friend, or just write in notes of what you learned. When we recall, then our learning ability increases. For the next 1 minute, can you write down? Can you recollect and write down? Type it in your chat, send to your group, WhatsApp group, whatever that may be. When we learn and then we repeat that, even at the end of the session, if you repeat that to your spouse, your children, there you go, we suddenly increased our learning, our memory capacity. Yes. So we can learn this any number of times, and this is, I feel, one of the very important ways. This is a concept that if we know, then we know, and then we know how much importance we give to reading or listening to others and recollecting. Learning to doing to being, learn, do, be. This is even a concept in quantum physics too. Quantum physics refer this to. Learn, do, be. When we are every day meditating and connecting to that emptiness, where your attention goes, the energy flows. And the quantum physics principle is that where observation is, the observation collapses the possibility. There are infinite possibilities. Everything that you are experiencing or will experience is a possibility, because everything is an event, and then our observation collapses the possibility. So our observation is thought and feeling. And that thought and feeling is going from a learning to being state. So what is being? Being is that it's there inherently inside you, like a blood pumping, right? So if you are be of a state, that means it is by default in you. You do not doubt, you do not hesitate, you don't have uncertainty about it. You don't have any fear about it, because you know it so well that it is with you. And when you are like that, then you are projecting that into the field, because by default there is no doubtful, no wavering mind of that. For example, you are driving, for example, your cooking experience, your natural ability to speak in a large public gathering. I mean, your ability, not natural ability, because something we can easily develop. Your ability. For example, you're a programmer in specific computer language, then your ability. So you're so much of it that you never doubt, you never hesitate, you're never fearful of anything in that area, because you just mastered it, right? So we got to go into a B state. When you are in a B state, then that's exactly what you project without any question wavering. If you want to become richer, if you can feel rich, you can be in that state of happiness, then you can project that directly, and then you receive more of it suddenly. When you move into a B state of whatever that is, then we are receiving more of it, and then more of it through others or into our life indirectly. Learning, doing, being. So to manifest a possibility, we got to be constantly projecting through a thought and feeling that possible, that a frequency. And the best way is, first step is learning, second step is doing, becomes, and third step is becoming. When you become of it, then it's a natural state of affairs for you. People who feel abundant inside, they're creating always abundance around. If you are naturally have a compassionate attitude towards, say, animals, that compassion you're naturally receiving, because that's the natural state, and that's what you project out into the quantum field. So more of that is what you receive. So people start giving you that compassion all around you. Everybody gives you that compassion. You'll be taken care. I'm sure some of it you experience it. So learning, doing, being, friends. Now this is learned through these three brains. This neocortex is the frontal brain, this big brain. And then limbic brain is the long-term memory, is a doing brain where you learn a skill and then goes inside here. And then the reptile brain is a survival reproduction deep inside, which is attached to this vertebra stem. That reptile brain is there. So when you initially learn something, they're all stored. A lot of these neural networks are occupying everywhere. They're taking all of that and occupied. The whole brain, if you rightfully see, this top brain is a conscious brain. Also, it's called conscious brain. And this is where most of cognitive function is there. Cognitive function of decision making, learning, reading, creative abilities, all of the logic, analysis, reasoning, everything is here. And here it is all just skill that you learn again, or anything you do again and again and again, that's stored there as a deep imprinted inside here in this second brain, limbic brain. Okay, that's why emotions that we keep playing out, they go in and store there. Long-term memory is inside this. Okay, the hippocampus area is inside this. And then this inside the unconscious brain, or the third brain, unconscious means not medical term, but unconscious brain, because one is conscious, subconscious, unconscious is how we use in spiritual words. This reptile brain is things it is doing automatically. It does not even know it's doing automatically. So when you start driving, you do it automatically. You no longer think about it, right? You learned it enough. During learning stage, it is semi-automatic, but once you learned it enough, you're automatic, autopilot. So when we first learn this place, let's learn a little bit more. So the brain has 100 billion neurons, and the neuron is, each of this is a neuron. The starfish kind of thing is a neuron. It has these tentacles, and then it connects with another neuron with these connections, neural networks they're called. And each one can potentially do 40,000 connection, 40,000 to 1 lakh connection with another neuron. And every time a connection is formed, friends, that's memory. When you learn something, a connection is formed, that's memory is getting formed. So you're learning a phone number, potentially about 1,500 connections are formed across multiple neurons. Now, one byte. 10-digit phone number, probably 15,000 connections are formed. It's a lot of them required to come together, because what is that? The connections are, the connection is with there is a gap, and then when you recollect something and when you're learning, it fires an electric impulse. And then the connections come together at that point with an electric impulse. And there is some glue there, so the glue is holding them together. So these connections, every time you learn something, a lot of connections are formed. If you're learning text, some connections. So phone number, text, let's say 15,000 connections. A phone number visual form with some pictures around that numbers, then probably suddenly the 15,000 connections is becoming 15 million connections potentially. You know, the IT guys can appreciate, you know, if you're learning as a bitmap or an image versus a text, you know, how much data it requires to store. So it stores, when you're doing something with visual, it takes a lot of connection stores. But the brain has infinite capacity, 100 billion neurons, and each neuron with another neuron up to 1 lakh connections. You know, that capacity is terabytes and terabytes and terabytes, you know, not even terabytes, you know, gigabytes, whatever. It's huge numbers, you don't even have to worry about it. So much is there. Then what is it? So when we're learning, we're forming connections, and every time we recall, then those cells, again, those cells that are connected fire. When they fire, then suddenly all of that data that's stored comes back for processing. So every time you recall, then they fire again. So when you fire, then you are actually forming another set of connections. This is how beautifully the brain is designed. So every time you recall, more connections get formed around that piece of information. So my cooking brain, my learning brain, driving brain, coding brain, you know, management brain, public speaking brain, all those are there. My meditation brain, where you are actually taking a set of neural connections and forming that skill, because right now we're learning, right, you know, how to meditate every day. Yeah, thoughts come, I'm going to keep the thoughts aside and observe the breath again thoughts come, observe the breath again. And then how do I keep my thought extended for the whole duration? Chandra tells, don't bother about it. It is not required. All you need to do is to go back and focus on your breath. That's all, because part and parcel of meditation, the thoughts keep coming. We don't have to bother about it, not to worry about it. This whole knowledge is a meditation learning process. How to connect into that emptiness. We are wiring ourselves to connect into the emptiness, because every time you have an experience, you're storing somewhere relating to that. So each time you're learning about it, you're making it thicker and thicker. Each time you're learning something, you experience something about it, it goes and attaches to that area. It becomes even thicker. Your knowledge around that area becomes even more thicker, right? So you get the idea. So if you recall, we get a more thicker connection. The more thicker it is, it's like a wire. So initially thread, it becomes a rope, eventually over a period of time. Thread, you can simply just break it off. A rope takes time to break off. So that's how our memory becomes long-term or short-term. If we are repeated enough times, like all those tables in our childhood, we never forget in our life. Same way, if you repeat things, you can never forget it. So we have to do recall. That's one way. You store it in a big area. So visual with experience, you store a lot many connections. Every time you do a lot many connections, right? For example, if I store my phone number in 15,000 connections, and because cells degrade, if 10% gone away, 10% of cells degraded because, you know, some thing happened. 10 digits, 15,000, 10% gone, one digit is lost. Suddenly what happens? We lose a phone number. That's of no use, right? Because if one digit lost, then no use of phone number. Memory is gone. That's what we say. But that 1500 connections, let's say you stored the phone number visually with a context, right? We applied some narrative. Oh, it's got 3 9s. Oh, it's got 3 6s, 3 6s. Okay, some special meaning you give to that, and you store it like that. And then you stored it with 2 lakh connections, and then same 1500 go away. What happens? You still have 1 lakh 98,500 connections are still storing the phone number. So even though 1500 gone away, you still can recollect the whole thing because each digit potentially stored with 20,000 connections and only 1500 lost, you still can construct the digit. That's why pictures, when you store, you can construct it. Even though some parts have gone away, you can easily construct it. We know that, right? A face is stored and a part of it gone away. We know how to extend the face to then complete the portion, even though a small part is gone away in a paper. So same thing. So visually we store it, and feelings we store, it becomes even more stronger. So one thing you want to do, dear friends, when you want to manifest, when you want to make things happen in our life, you want to learn and repeat it and then store it visual and feelings. The more feelings and visual you do, the more strong it is, the more you're projecting that into the quantum field in the universe, so the more you create out of it. So learning, regularly we repeat it, it goes into the doing, and then it goes into or a period being state. With this, as we go into the next week, friends, we are going to utilize this capability in manifestation, in visualization principles, because manifestation of what we want is important. Now, with this also you understand that when you have a negative experience in life, if you brood over it again and again and again, what are we doing? We are strengthening that connection so strongly. And when we're strengthening the connection so strongly, that's exactly what we project more and more out of it into the field, and we create more out of it. So things can be adverse, but then we never, we recognize, and then we want to keep that aside. So what, something bad has happened? So what, somebody vacated the body? When we recognize that, we keep coming back again and again. So where is the worry about death? So what if we lose a job? Why we lose a job? When we don't have enough clarity, we lose a job. We become too complacent with our job. We become too complacent, and we're not looking to go beyond that comfort zone to learn something new. It gets boring. And so our energy body inside says, what are we doing here? If you stick to the comfort zone, either it gets so boring, it gets on to your ill health, or it forces you to sort of change the job. At least that way, start learning something new, and new experiences come. So friends, learning to doing to being is a very important concept. When we learn this, for example, when we are learning about meditation increasing creativity, meditation helping us to be empathetic. These principles, those books we read, and you get better, you really like that. And then you start telling that concept to multiple people. We have to tell the concept. You'll tell the concept to your family. You go to your office, you start telling the same concept to your friends, colleagues there. Hey, you know what? Apparently we can increase our brain connections and then we actually create what we want. And situation may be there, but it's all about connecting with everybody. When we become one with everybody, our manifestation capability increases. So to connect with everybody, we develop empathy. We start judging, we stop commenting. So you tell all these concepts to your friends. The more you tell, the more you are making it stronger for you, right? You're learning more. It's going into the doing brain. So as you're learning more, and then as people now implement it, they'll do their experience, they'll come and tell you also, share their experience. Hey, last time you told me this great thing, empathy, so I applied it to my mother-in-law, it's so cool. I'm so happy. Then you take that, right? But then the same situation for you. You are in this COVID time working with your mother-in-law all the time, and every time you come out of the room, there is a problem, there is a challenge, because you have past events that are there, dreadful events are there, that again something is going to say, she's going to say, or I'm going to say, we're going to lose the temper. You want to avoid it. If she is there, you go into the room. If she is outside, you are inside. If you are inside, she's inside. You are outside, she's inside. Because this thing is going on, Each one is avoiding each other. But tell you what, next time when you are having the situation, if you have been in this meditation practice, what will happen? Because you're learning all this empathy and then becoming one, suddenly you will recollect. Suddenly that spark will come. Just the time when you say, oh, she's out again, so let me just go back. But this spark will come and say, no, wait, why am I doing this? We're all one. So it's about actually making and going out and making a connection. I've learned so much in this meditation class about it. That spark comes and then you start changing your response to your mother-in-law at that point. Suddenly that spark comes and everything you learned about it, your friend sharing to you, and then you shared experience about it to somebody else, and all of that comes together into your brain and suddenly, and then with that, now you sit back and say, no, I'm not going back into the room. I'm coming out and then going and then mustering courage to go and then say hi to her and say, come, so what do we do today? What do we cook today? You have the conversation. So you changed yourself for the first time. And when you find your connections about this new knowledge, because it requires some glue from the brain, that glue is in short supply. For every 10 connections, you have a glue of 10%. So the glue is in short supply. So the brain has to take the glue from somewhere, and the chances are that if 80% of our brain is with negative and then anxious thoughts, it's going to pull it from there. So it weakens the anxious, negative thoughts, negative knowledge. It strengthens the new knowledge, positive knowledge, because you're recollecting. And so this becomes stronger, that becomes weaker. So where is this place of meditation, friends, in this? Meditation is the one which is giving you that spark. That spark to go back and do a different response, meditation gives you, because you're present moment aware. And it is synthesizing, and I said consciousness is always paying attention. Because you're sincere, you're learning, and consciousness is paying attention, it is pulling that information back to you and throwing at you and saying, hey, look, you have another option to be empathetic as opposed to hold on to your old opinion. You have other option. So meditation is throwing that connection. The second, meditation is developing so much of new neural connections and helping you to learn more and more, right? So these are the two things of how meditation helps us in implementing whatever we're learning. So we got to learn with repetition, friends. We got to share as much as possible. Now you get it, why we keep asking, share. We keep asking, read, right? We keep asking, come on, join doing voluntary or teach. Patri sir is always saying teach, because when you teach, then it becomes stronger for us. So when we do this, and we talk about it. If you don't teach, it's fine, but talk about it, right? You create awareness, talk about it. So in all of the ways, we are improving, strengthening our connections, friends. So learning to doing to being. As you repeat, there'll be a time where we become off it. Compassion comes naturally. Empathy comes naturally. Non-judgmental comes naturally. You're always looking for another person because there is a reason why they are behaving that way. You know it. If people are at different evolution levels, everybody is right in their life. There's no point judging anybody. You recognize that judgment is a way to satisfy yourself. Judgment is a way that's separating you from the other person. You don't have to judge. Everybody is evolving at their own pace. Everybody is right at their own level. That we understand deeply as we go in and understand the spiritual quotient. If Aham Brahmasmi, that means you and I are divine. So where is the question of somebody wrong? It is the evolution level. So where is that evolution level? Then that is a subject beyond this 6 weeks program. But you can absolutely understand as you read more and more of these books and experiment for yourself. So friends, to summarize, meditation is improving our performance greatly because it is increasing our memory power significantly. It is giving us excellent, radiant health and then a high energy in the body. These three things, because of which anything we take up, we become highly successful. And we enjoy, and we become great asset to everybody that in the community or asset to the organization. Thank you, friends. It's great to learn always these concepts, and when there is any amount of time, we can repeat and enjoy them. So we'll take a quick comment from Ramnisa, and SVB sir as business leaders before we conclude. And Karthikeyan sir, of course, we're going to take we close the session with Karthikeyan sir. Yes, sir. Sir, 1 second, you're muted. 1 second.
Chandra.
Yes, sir.
It's another wonderful session from you. The whole thing could be expressed in one single sentence. Someone has chatted, I was just watching it. He said, you deserve a doctorate. He said, Chandra, you deserve a doctorate. True. So simply and beautifully explained. And I'm learning and sharing what you said. When you keep sharing with somebody, it just gets into this thing so strongly. We used to have in our medical college a concept of preceptorship. Anybody who does the first 3 ranking students in an year will be asked to take classes for the next junior level students. And that would really strengthen our own knowledge. The learning and sharing go hand in hand. And yet another quick point is that how our own team in our organization will benefit out of meditation. It's a big take-home message. We used to talk about manpower, maybe about 20, 30 years back. Then we said, no, it is not manpower, it is human resource. Then at some point we said, no, it has to be human resource development. And now we are talking about human asset and human capital. So if a manpower has to be converted into a human capital, this kind of a program, definitely it will lift the entire organization. I'm strongly thinking that this should be exposed to as many people as possible. And that can happen only when we learn. Not only learn, we also share. Thank you very much, Chandra. Wonderful session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That's your comments mean great. And you summed up so well, learning and sharing. You think there are 2 things. That's what you are doing. You've been sharing your resources so generously ever since you understood this, I think, in many, many ways. And thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And SVB sir is there? SVB sir is there, but sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Chandra. Yeah, already doctor has said enough about the meditation process. One learning which I could share is thought power. I have to present a paper as a document. I've been thinking how to do it. This thought power process is one way to make the presentation more acceptable to people. So I think this meditation gives that thought power, which I have been just thinking how to present it for the last 2 days. Today, I am able to decide how to present it, which will be accepted to all the people. So that way, one learning that I have got is the thought power, how to use it profitably and usefully for your business, one thing. Number 2, as rightly said by Dr. Ramani, this meditation has to be brought to all people, mainly those who are working under you immediately, and to the public as a whole. I think there's no doubt that the manifestation, a process which you are going to take classes in future, is going to be a big asset to everyone, so that they will be able to fulfill whatever that is provided. They are all natural, they are all acceptable. That way, I think it's a great class that we had today, a learning we had today. Thank you, Chandra.
Thank you, sir. You said that, friends, that's chairman of Bandar Aman Group of Companies. Sir is very humble, but he's such a successful business leader, huge. And ever since I met him couple of months ago, I've been learning so much. To be humble, to constantly learn, no matter what it is, because we all have something to share. I've realized this long ago. Every person that we're coming into our life is teaching us something, learning us something. And thank you, sir. That encourages me when you say, okay, there is something that you might be able to take to do a presentation on a thought power paper, but you know it all. You probably are telling to encourage me or kind words, but thank you. So Karthikeyan sir, your closing comments to close the session for today, sir.
Well, Dr. SVB and Dr. Ramani have said all that can be said. I would only add that a brilliant exposition of one other important aspect of meditation, lot of learning, very brilliantly and explained with a lot of clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I know, sir, you've been with us, and it is definitely a repetition, but your encouragement is certainly is creating more and more awareness to others, as well as my team is so encouraged with your presence, Karthikeyan sir, every day. Thank you. Thank you so much.